Like you. So you are the people who are concerned when it comes to issues of how do goods get from where they are sourced to the particular point at which it is used, to the particular point at which we now have final products, and now we now have those final products moved directly to the final consumer. But all those things, you didn't do that just for free, pro bono. You're expecting the yeah, you're expecting the cash at the end of the day. And oftentimes we do not think of the implications of the raw materials, where it's coming from. We don't think of the implications of the impact all that process is having on our environment or on us, even as individuals, as people. So I got into, before I came in here for my PhD program, I was privileged to live. I was living in Port Harcourt. And living in Port Harcourt, I had a senior friend who was a contractor. And he got a contract from the government to do a road in Oloibiri. Oloibiri is the first place where oil was found in Nigeria. And so when he was working there, I said, oh, it would be nice for me. I want to go and do a master's program. It would be nice for me to know how Oloibiri is. So I followed him, accompanied him to Oloibiri. And what a shock. What a shock. Of course. What a shock that a place like the chicken that lays the golden egg is neglected. And that was the first road being constructed in Oloibiri in 2007. And oil was struck in Oloibiri in 1956. Now, I want, as we go through some of these slides and talk and converse, I want you to begin to think about that. See, like I spoke some years ago here to the law students about ethics and values. The point is that all of you sitting here before today are decision makers. And you're going to be making decisions. And there's a need for you to take responsibility in the decisions you will be making, to ensure that such kind of things that happen in Oloibiri does not repeat itself. Is that clear? Yes. So quickly, we'll just go through some things we might rush. Now, that's who I am. I'm the CEO of The Bridge. The Bridge is a charity registered in the UK that runs social intervention projects, various aspects. I'm also an academic. Of course, when I was here, I lectured in RGU. Currently, I'm working with Adin University, and I'm also, doing other things, other projects which I do run and I oversee. So we're going to be looking at the challenge of corporate social responsibility and sustainable development, because there's an interchange, or that some will even call it corporate sustainability. You get it? Responsibility. So what are the contemporary issues? There are contemporary issues that are in the world today. And some of these topics or things here are some of the things you will be seeing in your lecture. The aspect and the issues of globalization. Globalization has become a problem, so to speak, because there seems to be no barrier, no border in the way we do things. You can just be in your place, in your house, and get something from China and get what you desire, whatever you want to get, you get it bought, and it gets to you, shipped across to you. So the challenge and the issue of globalization is one of those things that are contemporary issues that are facing organizations. Consumer driven, you know what happened when there was COVID and when China shut down, we couldn't get anything. And maybe I'm ahead of myself. You see, all live in the West, and this is the West. It's more of the fact that we seem to, there's a global world. There's a North, global North, and the global South. The global North are the developed, advanced countries. The global South are the developing world, so to speak. And the global North are blaming the global what? South for what they do. And that was the reason why you could see that during the COP, they could not come to an agreement, even in Egypt. Why? The global South is saying, you must help us. You are the culprit causing all the problem. We are not the one causing the problem. And we are the one bearing the brunt of the problem. You must bring finance, you must bring money, you must bring something to help us. Now, why did I say that? But until all of us, myself inclusive and all of you in this room, until we tame our consumerism, we are all culprits. We are all guilty as charged. Because the global North will buy things. Some of the things that you said people come and donate. Some of those things keep people buying. They go to the shopping mall, keep buying, keep buying, keep buying. But because it is not produced here, what do? We don't care about it. China is the one doing, is that the culprit, isn't it? And we say, it is China causing all the problem. But who is buying from China? So all of us are the ones that can bring a change to what is happening in the world. And that's why even as supply chain professionals, you need to begin to think the impact, the implication of sustainable consumption. Sustainable consumption. All right. What are other things? The issue of consumer-driven Western culture, consumer boycotts. These are things common here in the West. There is a strike action going on now by those in the academia and other places. They now seize the NHS. IT communication regulation, the impulse of corporate and brand image and reputation. Organizations don't want to involve with any staff who is seemingly going to affect the book balance of the brand image, isn't it? They don't want to do that. Increasing power of multinational organizations. Multinational organizations now even are bigger. Walmart, the value of Walmart is bigger than the economy of some nations because they have become a very hegemonic, big corporate organizations. Or the aspect of workforce diversity, cultural diversity, age, race, ethnic diversity, religious and sexual, socioeconomic or capabilities and disabilities. What of the aspect of accountability scandals? The aspect of the financial sector, corporate governance, transparency, the rise of NGO. Talk of Green Space, Shell, Brent Spa, and more of recent, M25, being locked by the No More Oil. Are you there? That blew themselves to the road and said, no, people should not go because we need to stop oil producing. Now, as a business person, see yourself as the CEO of an organization. And these are all the things you need to deal with to ensure that you supply to your consumers. So you can see there are challenges pushing and pulling here and there. So what of oil spills? We have had oil spills. Like I told you, the story of the Niger Delta, quite a lot of oil spills in the Niger Delta. And when you now look at the aspect of sustainable development, looking at the issue of environment, climate change, biodiversity, loss, the deforestation, water quality, degradation, and air pollution. What of social jobs, social impact, and also the financial impact and things like that. So these are just some of the contemporary issues which even you as a supply chain specialist, you'll be thinking about. You have to deal with. This is what is happening even in the world that we are in currently. All right. So, what does the natural environment or CSR mean for you as a person? Because you can see yourself as CEOs. You see yourself as Chief Executive Officer of an organization. And so what does corporate social responsibility mean for you in your articulating or doing your business, even in the environment? How can your organization, as an organization that does things that has to do with supply chain, how can you bring positive impact? How can you do corporate social responsibility? How can you operate making sure that the environment is not decimated? These are things we need to be thinking about, and not just looking at the bottom line of the balance sheet of money, of how much we are going to make from that. So there's the aspect of being proactive rather than being reactive to some of these things. Okay. So key terms. It is corporate citizenship. In other words, you, your company. So let me see. I think some of us here have been managers. I know that. Some of us have been CEOs. I know that. Because I know you have extensive experience, 15 years experience. Some have had 20 years experience here, sitting in here. So you are actually managers. You are actually CEOs. And as people who are thinking of, transitioning, how is your organization going to be a good corporate citizen and not going to be part of the problem, but part of the solution to the global challenges that we are facing in our world today? These are things you need to begin to think about. The aspect of knowing that understanding and managing your company's wider influence. Every company have impact upon the environment, and that is what is of level. And I remember my master PhD thesis was looking at the impact of corporate organizations on the environment in the Niger Delta. The impact of why is it that organizations that are making millions, like this year, Shell declared the highest profit they've ever made this year. So how is it that such an organization in the same environment is working where they get those resources? Those people are living in abject poverty. How is that? How does that sound well? And those were some of the premise after I went to Oloibri that began to show that what is happening in this particular environment. And let's point, don't need to say, it is Shell. Perhaps in your organization, in your company, perhaps you were also doing something like that. Perhaps you were not even concerned about your employees. Perhaps you are not even paying your staff. Perhaps you think how to, cut corners. Oftentimes we are often good at pointing fingers. But remember, at every time you point fingers, how many are pointing at you? So we are also part, and that's why I started saying that all of us are actually guilty. And there's a need for us to begin to think of how to bring change, how to bring about a change in this environment. And you might begin to think, okay, so what would my master's in supply chain management, what would it bring me? How would I use my master's in supply chain management to bring a change to the world? How would I use my knowledge, the knowledge I'm going to get here, to bring change so that the impact of the environment, the impact of things around does not continue the way it is? You can be the change. One person can be that change. So if you look at already, I know some of, like I mentioned earlier, all of us are literates, we are CEOs, we are managers, we are people, we know already Carol CSR aspect. We talk about those 4 domains of your organization. The domain of the legal aspect of the domain of the aspect of philanthropy, of you taking, giving out to people, the aspect of the economics, how do you raise funds? And if I ask some of you now, you will tell us how you were able to raise funds for your organization. And that is good. That is important. But you see, the violations of ethical ideals of the society are common in business. And in one of my papers, you can find it online, which I argue on sustainability. Actually, a book chapter which I released last year, a book chapter on sustainability, corporate social responsibility as a tool to solve climate change in that book. And the argument is that, you see, businesses and organizations, they are the culprit from some of the things I've said, isn't it? And they are also the solution. They are also the solution. Businesses are the solution. You ask why, or maybe I should even pause. Why do you think businesses, I argue that businesses are the solution? Let me hear from you.
Okay, businesses are the solution because if a business goes inward, think about the impact of what a business is making in the environment and how they are negatively impacting it, and come up with strategies and moves to counter such, it will have an effect, in correcting that error. So you go back, think about it, look at the impact of your business to the environment, and you actually work towards correcting that, and it will have an impact.
Yeah, thank you. Let me have the gentleman at the top over there. Why do you think businesses are the solution?
Sorry.
No, it's you, sir. It's actually you at the extreme end. I'll come to you. At the extreme end, sir. Why do you think businesses are the solution, even though they are the cause of the problem and they are also the solution to the problem?
Because if there is they are the solution because they are the one utilizing the resources in that environment.
Okay.
And if they are going to be helpful, they should have a robust way of giving back to the society.
Okay.
In terms of trying to be part of the development of that society. I know they can't do it all alone.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And you, sir?
Well, I beg to differ a little. I've had instances where the corporate body is actually ready to do things of social corporate responsibility.
Okay.
But the regulatory body, the government agencies, pose challenges. So sometimes when we don't do our study, we just go out blaming the corporate organizations. It is not always true. Sometimes they have the mind to do these things. They've set out at least a lot of, an average corporate organization, in quotes, have a budget for that probably annually. But we've come to terms where challenges comes up when they want to execute such plans. The government is a challenge also. So when we are blaming the...
optimally make the money I can make now and just enjoy myself, isn't it? So that is part of the issue. The issue, eco-efficiency or sustainability, the relevance of your organization today, and the level, the type, the content, the process of change that you need to tend towards sustainability. I hope, and my aspiration in making this presentation is that after now, each one of us, whatever organization you come in contact with, will feel an impact of sustainability. That you be a vehicle to bring about change and sustainability in that organization. That you will be thinking about our processes. How is our processes from cradle to grave? How is it impacted? What are we doing? Are we going to be thinking about producing? And you know, for everything you are putting on, everything you have on you now, was manufactured, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Everything was manufactured. The question now is, after it was manufactured, how will you end the life of that you are putting on? You said? Dustbin. So that's the waste. That is the downhill. And that's what you're thinking about.
Some of them are not recyclable.
Come again?
Some of them are not recyclable.
Some of them are not recyclable. So the question now is, why would an organization produce something that is non-recyclable?
It's because now we're thinking towards that. When you were talking, we were pointing at business organization. I just kept quiet. But you don't say the role of government.
Yeah.
Because the reason is this. You come to Nigeria,
Yeah.
Shell and some other companies, they flare gas.
Yeah.
And that gas is then gas releasing.
Yeah.
But because there's no strong regulation for flaring gas,
Yeah.
they're just busy burning it. Now, if you wait for the organization to fix it by themselves, it's expensive to do so. They won't do so.
Yep.
Those that spill oil in place you mentioned, they're not interested in the account because there's no government presence to mandate them to stop spilling oil.
Yeah.
So if there is a control, they won't do that. So I don't think we should always just point to the government should also do some part in regulating the activities.
Okay. Well, that's a very good argument. That's a very good argument. But you now need to look at these also organizations you have, these companies you are mentioning, they operate here in the West and they don't spill. No, I'm coming. I like the debate. They operate here and they don't spill. If you go back to the point I mentioned earlier about the hegemony, the power I mentioned earlier, part of the challenge we have, corporate organizations do have power. If a corporate organization indicates that if the government is not going to regulate, they're going to pull out, what do you think the government will do?
Like I said, it's just
No. Answer. What will the government do? That's the point. So they have what it takes to force the government, so to speak. They have what it takes to influence the government. Why? Because the government wants to benefit. And in my final thesis, in my dissertation, the argument actually was put at the fork. It's 50-50. It's 50-50. Why? Because a government cannot be a shareholder and also be a regulator.
that's what happened.
Well, it's not possible, but I agree. However, the corporate organizations know how it is to control and to ensure that if you want me to operate based on continue to give you money, you must do something. But and that's why they're saying that each and every of us that is here, we have a part to play. You have a part to play. You have a part to play. You might say the environment is corrupt, yeah, but you have a part to play. Just look inward. And we're going to see some of that in the case study, which we're going to look at. Let me run now. I think, wow. So, all right. So, so that aspect of changing the rules of the game to ensure that we are able to achieve sustainability. Changing the rule of the game, influencing governments to be able to, that we are able to, do that. Reorganizing the company's supply chain to ensure that the whole production process is sustainable, which is what we mentioned earlier. Ensuring that from cradle to grave, that everything is sustainable. To build human and relational capital, support dematerialization and the growth of knowledge-based economy. Model best practice, support publicize and practice elsewhere, seek external auditing of sustainability to ensure that, okay, it is not you saying that we are a sustainable organization. So, my time is up.
No, I'm just saying that the tender apps on.
Okay. All right. So, I mentioned earlier about the importance of stakeholder theory. That is, an organization, you work in an environment, you have shareholders, you have clients, you have supply chain companies that are supplying to you, your workforce, your local or national government, which we mentioned now, the local or national government being part of the problem, the NGOs, professional associations, all these are primary stakeholders and they impact how you as an organization, supply chain organization or professional, how you execute or carry out your work. So, I will just run through this because of our time. Okay, now let me go to, let me just run, okay. Okay, so now look at this diagram, and I think it's important that you look at which you mentioned earlier about the various aspects of the firm and various things that impact the firm. So when you look at organization, we have there the national, the international, and the world bodies which are influencing the organization, and they help to keep the firm in check. We have the stakeholders, where we have the society, the company operating in the society and impacting the society. And we have some of those kind of the point mentioned earlier by the gentleman over there about the legal aspect in which the government finds itself wanting, the aspect of the HSC, health, safety, and environment. I know, I remember when I was conducting the interview for my thesis, it became very clear that in fact in as much as there is a policy or HSC policy, keeping to that policy is a different ballgame altogether. Sticking to the HSC compliance, and particularly finding out that there's what we call environmental impact assessment before any project is carried out. And by law, that is done. And there should be a monitoring of that document, how it's implemented. However, you know how it is where we come from. Yeah. That the fact that those kind of policies or things are not taken good care of. But they're not being enforced. Yes, you're correct. They're not being enforced. And even when they're supposed to be enforced, going back to the issue of the aspect of the government, there is a particular officer in that organization that will say, don't worry about that. Just do what? Do the right thing. Do the right thing, and we can overlook that aspect. And that is the aspect of ethics, which, as like here, supply chain specialist. I hope that will not be your law. When you're asking that, set it. And pressure. So what? Do you have to pray? You don't need to pray. It's just to do the right thing. It's just to do just I'm going to be a vessel for change. I'm just going to ensure that it doesn't happen under my watch. That's the key point here. And that's the point if you look at the end here of sustainability that we are talking about. The issue of pollution, product stewardship as supply chain professionals, the issue of resource husbandry, the issue of ethical fair trade, anti-corruption, moral absolutism. So these are some of the things I think you need to be, in the context of all the modules that you are taking, you need to begin to think and begin to find and say, how would this make the society a better place? All right. So I think I've been speaking so long. I want us to watch it. We might not be able to watch because it's about 15 minutes, but in line with the point you mentioned, in line with what the gentleman over there mentioned, I think it will give a type of perspective, and I might need to the volume. What can we do differently? And by the virtue of the fact of what he did, he got the award as his company is the most sustainable company in the world. Because they began to produce carpets without cutting down the use of oil, petroleum materials, reducing the amount of water they are using to produce those carpets, ensuring that they are contributing and not adding, they are reducing and not adding to the problem in the world. Let's listen to a little more before I stop it, because you can go home and just listen to it yourself. Make and waste industrial, that's the way the system is. And so for us as people, like he solved the problem in his company, wherever company you end up with, may I just ask you to stop the take, make, waste cycle. Whatever level you have, you might not necessarily be the head of sustainability. You might not even be, you might just be an employee. But the point I'm making is that what? You can underestimate the value of the change you as an individual can make as a subordinate in that organization. So, first, be optimistic. And first, don't be thinking of the obstacle you're going to face. It's first you thinking, I must be the change, something must be done, and I must begin to think about it like he did, and he brought about the change. And interestingly enough, if you get to me, you are going to look at it, the change he brought about correspondingly led to a significant increase in profitability for him as an organization. And maybe I'll just fast forward to that point. So the point of would profit increase if we change? Of course, profit would increase. If I can't find it, but you can, when you get home, you can just go and listen to it. You can, but you get the point. So that's the point. The point that you and I are the change, and you can be the change if we begin to think about what can we do differently to our environment, what can we do differently as supply chain professionals, what can we do differently to bring about change to the world? Because like you know it, production is not slowing down soon. Is it? It's on the rise. Isn't it? So if production is on the rise, then it therefore means also that subsequently the negative impact is also on the rise. So, and we must do something about it. And that's where you come into the picture as supply chain professionals. That's where you come into the picture as people who need to bring about the change. Be part of the vehicle that can bring about that change. So, further implication, there's a need for change. There's a need of the impact of culture, the issue of strategy, as those who you say are at the top, the issue of leadership, motivation, and structure. So that's the end. Thank you so much for listening. Like I told you, I'm part of a charity which I run. I started outreach of Fountain of Love, where I work also, called The Bridge, running social intervention projects that deal with loneliness and social isolation, deal with employment and helping people to get into employment. In the space of the past 4 years, I've been privileged to support 220 people in seeking employment in the UK, and over close to 100 of them have found employment in companies like Deloitte, JP Morgan, and co, NHS, and some of those organizations, which is what we do at The Bridge. And also, if you are interested, I also have my personal website in which you can be able to check out some of the things that I'm interested in. And more importantly, I say this is more important because this is what is my passion now. That is Project 50 Pentagon, which is a project which I'm running now. By April, I'll be 50 years old, and I'm running a project of empowering 50 student union leaders on the continent of Africa. And that's why I'm talking to you. You might know some of those student union leaders in any continent, in any country on the continent of Africa. To be able to find, we need to empower them. We need to change dynamics of leadership, particularly on the continent of Africa. So we want to empower 50 student union bodies in 50 universities on the continent of Africa, from 50 nations of the continent of Africa, in which they are going to go through 50 hours of coaching and mentorship on leadership by myself and some of my professional friends, to be able to go through that on or before my birthday on the 30th of April, which is this few days from now. And they are going to run and execute 50 community projects with zero budgeting. In other words, you run 50 projects without spending a dime. Because it's possible to make change without spending money. So, that's me done. Thank you so much for listening. Answer the questions. Easier to answer. Yes.
If he's got questions.
Thank you very much, sir, for your robust lecture, and thank you to our host leader for bringing you here. I want to start by saying that most of the time when our speakers come and speak to us, they speak to us like when we live here, we're all going to be procurement professionals. The truth of the matter is that some of us here will be future state governors in our country. Some of us here will be future House of Reps and Senate members who will also be responsible for making legislation so that whenever you are addressing this type of crowd, it's not everybody that will go. Some will be in academics as well, some will be in government and governance. So my question now is, beyond the take, make, waste, plundering, recovery cycle that Mr. Ray talked about, what about waste to wealth cycles? Would waste to wealth cycle, would it help for sustainability as well?
Well, somebody already answered over there for you. Well, yeah. Yeah. The point is that we just must begin to think at everything that passes through you, you are thinking of what can we do with it. In this society, it is more cultural to see people, there are upcycling groups. There are societies where you have things you give. There's vintage, I don't know if you've seen this website, vintage clothes, that sell vintage clothes.
Vintage, yeah.
Vintage, okay, sorry, but at least you're like, vintage, but it's selling vintage clothes or something like that. I know. So the point is that there are opportunities. Is that anything and any level in which you have is to see, okay, how can I reduce? How can I extend the life of this? How can I repurpose, which is key thing under sustainability, repurposing. You see, there was a young lady which I'm hoping to bring. I don't have a show I do on Instagram called the Mentors Show. There's a lady, I think in Nigeria, that repurposes waste tires to become furniture. Yeah, she's done marvelously waste tires and to become wonderful furniture. There's another person who uses the bathtub, old bathtub, to become furniture.
Wow.
So it's just that point of thinking something can be done with it. Something can be done. So it's just that we must all be thinking. And back to the comment you mentioned about all of you here not being going to be in the. I totally agree. Yeah, but as at now, you are in this context, and so it is for you. And this is part of the master's teaching and lecturing. Is for you to extrapolate the idea. Is to think, okay, I was taught this during my master's program, and that's the essence of being literate, isn't it? How can I use this in changing policy? How can I use this in bringing new policy for the state? How can I use this and create bills for the house? What can I do? Can I bring think tank of people together to make new laws, new bills that will be in line of sustainability? So we agree that all of you will not be in that field, but your ability to take the idea you are pitching and to extrapolate it and use it in any context is important. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Is there any other question? Yes, please.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I actually believe in what you just taught us, sir. Even to the least level of it, I believe in change, and I believe it's very much possible. However, with the context of the take, make, and waste, I know it is a continuous thing, converting the waste into wealth and all that, but is it totally possible that there will not be a waste at a particular point? Is it possible that there will not be a waste? Because I extracted from your teaching, I have that side of me saying it is impossible.
Now, I might not get what I'm looking for, but there is what you call, there's a cycle of, and it's why I'm trying to remember, because I have a poster presentation on it. Maybe I'll get to him to send to you, about the fact that it's possible to be able to look at from cradle to grave of every material and think of what can we do, can we reuse, can we repurpose, how can it be changed. So in this part of the world, when you do the issue of production, every aspect of the production is measured and they know what brought about that. So it's possible. It's possible. But the first thing is for us to accept that it's possible, and now to look at the process and say, okay, from the process of digging, what could be done differently? Is the point of thinking of what can be done differently, like that man we saw, that Ray, said, what can be done differently? We need to do something. And often, until we come to the point of, can we do this in a different way, we will not see that innovation. Until we begin to think, can we do this in a different way, we might not see it. But there is possibility of reduction. If you go across the university, you will see measurement of how much lights we are reducing, how much water we are reducing as a university, trying to be sustainable. We once had, I forgot that doctor's name, who was the sustainability officer, and measuring every building, the impact every building is having on the environment, and how the university is cutting down the impact with all the issue of the light going off. When I started my program here in 2011, it was not like that. It wasn't like that. So the point is, it's possible. If first and foremost, of course, I agree that we might not all change at the end, but it's possible. So in my house, because I'm also the president of the Nigerian Environmental Society UK chapter, I try which we meet, and I think one of my colleagues, Dr. Oshobaju, Yomi Oshobaju, is my secretary, in which I try to off the electric. When I'm going to bed, I off the power from the socket. I might not do for the whole house, but at least I'm doing small. That's the point. It's just to begin to bring that change in one another.
And I think that's the same with like you're talking about the university. The Scottish government, much like a lot of other governments, will dictate and say we need to reduce our carbon footprint, we need everybody to be doing their part. So like I said, we monitor everything. So a lot of students complain, it's like, oh, it's so cold. It's because we used to have the thermostat up to 23. Now we've analysed it, it could be down to 21 to save energy. So we're right down to the minimum. And so I think if everybody, if all those businesses kind of do the same thing, the collective savings is massive. Because our refill, our dumps, our landfills are full. We've had generations of just dumping everything. And so I think in various countries, and particularly in Scotland, they're saying no more. So you'll notice if you look, when you go on bin day, there's lots of different colour bins that are around there. So to reduce all that landfill, it's one day a week you can only put rubbish, but the other days, other weeks, it's recycling only. For food, for everything, and so it's trying to get a culture, a different mindset of everybody to do their part. And
also, thank you for that. And you can also check. I think your colleague Adekunle has done some work on behavioral change of people when it comes to waste recycling.
Yeah, I think his PhD was on recycling.
His PhD was on recycling. So it's possible. It's possible. Thank you. Any other question?
Sir, how can we benefit from your organization, sir?
Which of them? Which aspects? The job. I just waiting. He said he's able to offer a job up to 200. No. I didn't say I'm able to offer. We're able to help them find. I run a job club.
I want to belong to the club.
I'm from Fountain of Love.
Yes.
And and from Fountain of Love, we run the job club to support people to get back into employment, which we do. And part of it is to ensure that people go through that. It's free. It's a free support. So these 220 people which we've supported is free. You don't charge anything. Just to go through, just to ensure you come, you understand what it takes, the process of the 8-week program, and support you. And when you have opportunity for interview, coach you and help you to know how to interview. Because if you don't know how to understand and if you don't know how to elucidate your value, bring your value out. And oftentimes, if you don't know how to do that, nobody will employ you. So you must first and foremost be able to know that you have value, you have experience, and encapsulate that experience in a particular way that it will be convincing for somebody to believe that, yes, you can solve my problem. Because every job advert you see, I tell them in the job club, is a cry, is a shout to say, we have a problem. We have a problem. Either by a university or by any company. Once you see a job advert vacancy, that's a cry. Say, we have a problem. So it is you showing up and say, I am the fixer, the solution to your problem. With all the experience.
The way they reject an application doesn't show that.
Unfortunately. No, the way they reject your application is because of many things. The aspect of your CV. No, your CV. Your CV not articulating the value you carry. Your LinkedIn profile not articulating the value you carry. The experience you have, even the things you did pro bono, that might be what will make you to get the job. But you are so fixated on the things you were paid to do. Because I was paid to do this. So because of that, that is the only experience I have. Whereas, what will get you the job might be what you were not paid to do, which is what is needed for this employer to employ you.
100.
So it's all these things put together to be able to do. So, but just I didn't put. Oh, my email is there, even though it's not.
I think what we get at the university is exactly that same what you just mentioned. That we have lots of employers that liaise with the university, and then they say, well, what would make a student employable? It is always the same answer. If they can articulate clearly what value they can bring. Because they do have problems, they have issues, and they need a solution. And so a student that can go in, or just once they've graduated, and say, this is my knowledge, I've done all this practical stuff on this theory, I can come in and I can advise you to do X, Y, and Z. I can improve this. And any student that can articulate that will always be considered, because so know your values. We talked about this in the BSM 522 module. Where we looked at tool and techniques, we went through them all. And for the person who can come in there and just say, well, I think we should apply this, is very valuable. And that module itself, so everything we talked about for 522 is about efficiency, improving things, managing the quality. So Kaizen, that lean technology, is reducing waste. It's trying to do things as efficiently as possible so we don't waste. And so all these things that we that whole module has been inspired by some of these same themes here. And so it's very important, it's a very important theme. And I bet that through the careers of everybody in this room, there's going to be one point, whatever your job role will be, where you'll be asked to how are we going to change things? How are we going to be more sustainable? That question's always asked of you. And that's for people to come up with ideas. You'll be on committees, you'll be in leadership positions, and we're all subject to audits, we're all subject to various goals, and so you have to be the one that says the solutions to say, this is how we could do it. Even if it's minute, small, gradual changes, they all count, but you have to be able to think about these things. So it's about the mindset, the culture of understanding this, believing in it, and then being able to use it in the business.
Absolutely, spot on. And that's the point in which, one of the key points which is being asked often in interviews, tell me about yourself, is a key point. If you're not able to use the QESA, what I call QESA, QESA, if you're not able to use that, you're not able to articulate your policies, your experience or exposure, and S, your skill, and finally A, your achievement. What did you do? Did you improve profit? Increase profit? Did you reduce costs? Did you increase a particular process? Did you reduce a particular process? The accounting procedure, did you reduce it even by 1 hour? It's for you to be able to show all those kind of achievements in your previous experience. And I think that is absolutely spot on, which is important. But it's possible for you to begin to think of being a change as you walk around. Begin to look at problems. Begin to look at solving. Now, the charity which we've registered, and it's not because I'm trying to blow my own, but also share with you that you can be a change. You can be a change. And some of the things you're going to get involved with at the end of the day might be actually the change the thing that will change your life, even as you do. Now, I came into the country and watched a TV program on Channel 4 on loneliness and social isolation, and I was thinking, oh, so there's a problem. It means there's money to be made. Hey, that's great. There's money to be made. And interestingly, I never knew at the end of the day that I'm going to start a charity that will be taking care of lonely and isolated people in the northeast of Scotland, Aberdeenshire, and Moray, for the past 4 years, which is what's the bridge. Now, which is what I was doing it for Fountain of Love. Now we are now the bridge. Aside the issue of employability. So the point I'm making is that you can be the change. As you grow around, look, open your eyes. There are problems to be solved. And even when you join an organization, there are problems. As you are going on with the organization, there are problems to be solved. Even in this university, there are problems everywhere. Even in this hall, this place where we are now, there are problems everywhere. It's for you to look at that and say, what can I do? How can I change this? And that might be the source of that leading to the transformation you're looking for when you go for interview. I think that if there's another question, thank you so much. I really appreciate it's been worthwhile.